Welcome to another edition of Not Another Tooling Podcast with the highly charged Mr. Matt Malcolm today and myself, Austin Pearson. Matt was just telling us how when he's been walking a lot on his treadmill, he gets all charged up. He can't touch anything. So I'm going to be talking for most of the session today, in case. And we'll see what happens with Matt in the meantime. Maybe he'll just go on fire in the corner. But
yeah, sometimes it actually does hurt. Like, yeah. So I just stop touching. It is what it is.
Right. Today we have a bit of a practical session, so a little bit different to our normal format. But we're going to talk about and show you how to do your own incident analysis. So we'll start off with, in fact, actually, before we start, let's just talk about why you should do this.
Well, can I add one thing before we do start? I would say at the end, but in case I don't remember. Our live sessions. So we're still looking for people to volunteer or be volunteered for our live sessions. Pretty much any topic in tooling. We've got a few things that we would like to discuss, but realistically, most topics in the tooling space will be fine. You'll join us in a session like this. It'll be 20 minutes to half an hour of recorded session, but we'll do it live through LinkedIn Live. It's going to be the plan, and it'll be scheduled well ahead in advance. So anybody who wants to join us, please do volunteer, DM us, comment, whatever else, and then we'll get you lined up. And it'll be plenty of advancement for scheduling time.
Yeah, and don't worry if you've never done anything like this before.
Neither we.
Exactly. It's really simple, and you don't have to prep for it. We don't do 50 takes of this. Literally everything is live, as you probably can tell.
Cool. Right.
Good. Wonderful. So incident data. Incident data is an absolute goldmine. It is the first place I start almost every conversation with a client. Is, have you analyzed your incident data? The answer is pretty much always no. Yes, they've got the built-in reporting of tools, whatever. But if you want to know where you can make improvements, then analyzing your incident data is absolutely the place to start. And good news is it's pretty much free to do, as long as you've got a copy of something like Excel. And you can go do this and get some really, really interesting insights. So I'm going to walk you through how I've done some of this with clients in the past, and give you a clue where to start. So the very first thing,
why you navigate to that. So why and when would you do this? It's very good for people to understand.
Well, that's a good shout. And the answer for me would be when I will be doing this every 6 months if it was my organization. And why I would be doing it is because it's so easy to get caught up in the big major incidents and think that these are the things that need to be fixed on a regular basis. But actually, as soon as you do the analysis, you'll see that you've got much bigger problems than whatever went wrong with your storage array last week. And there are loads and loads of things that you can then start to focus on and fix that might not cost you any money at all whatsoever, or might be things you can tweak in your existing tools. Or if you're thinking of going out to the market and looking for a new tool set, then you absolutely want to do this first, because you want to buy a tool that helps you fix those incident problems.
Perfect.
Cool. Okay. So hopefully you can see this lovely spreadsheet, and I'll try and zoom it up a little bit. So the very first thing you want is a template of what you need to go and get out of that incident. And if you want to drop me or Matt a line, I'll happily share this template with you. But essentially, all of these column headings are tick boxes that you can get out of whatever ITSM tool that you have got today. When you go and run a report and you say, give me the last 6 months data across these headings, and they're really simple things, you know, the incident number, when was it opened, when was it created, its priority, its urgency, its category, subcategory, etc., etc., etc. I won't go through them all because it'd be incredibly boring, but that's what you need to start, and happily share this template with you. So you want to go and grab ideally 6 months incident data if you've got it, 3 months if you haven't got it, or maybe it's too big, or if that incident data is too big, then a good way to divide it up is by priority rather than by date, so you can separate your P1s, P2s, P3s, P4s, etc.
Interesting. Why by date? So why by priority versus date?
Because you start to see from a date perspective, 6 months gives you a fairly good picture of what's really going on, whereas once you start getting less than that, you miss seasonality. Like, we're about to go into the holiday period in the UK, and some things are a lot quieter and some things are a lot noisier. Christmas periods, if you're in retail, all of that sort of thing. So the longer the date range you can do, the better it is. So therefore, easier to split it up and look at your P1s across 6 months rather than looking at all of your data only over 2 or 3 months. So, okay, so what I have...
Well, I was wondering, the previous screen had like 5 incidents. I was thinking it's not going to be much analysis here.
Absolutely. Yeah, there isn't. So hopefully this screen has got a lot more data on it that you can now see. And I will just zoom it in a little bit. So it's that all this is a completed version of the previous thing with rows and rows and rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of incidents in it. And all we're going to do is we're going to create some pivot tables and start to look at some obvious places for where we might have challenges. So we're just going to highlight everything by clicking on the top left. We're going to insert a pivot table, and we're going to do that on a new worksheet, which is going to create this. And then we're going to have the number of incidents. And very first one we'll do is priority. So that tells us now, hopefully, if you can see that, how many incidents of what type you've got. So now you can see this particular organization in their 6 months. This is quite a small organization. They only had 14 P1 incidents, but they had 1,065 P2 incidents, 117 P3s, 92 P4s, and 46 P5s. So straight away, Matt's going to look at that and go, hang on a minute, that doesn't look right. Oh, yeah.
They're wrongly categorized in the tickets, maybe.
Exactly.
Yes, don't win some points.
Because you're typically going to have a lot more P3s and P4s than you are of any other category, right? So for this organization, just in that one little 30 seconds bit of analysis, they need to go and redefine what their incident priorities are, why they even have a P5. That would be pretty unusual, right? You typically have P1 to P4, ITIL best practice would say. And then you want to redefine exactly what your incident priorities are. So P1 is everything down, nobody can work. You know, P2 is a high number of people are affected by the issue. And then P3, you get down to individuals being affected, and then individuals being inconvenienced, typically. So clearly that's not the case here. And that means that the impact to that is that P1s and P2s, typically that's where you're getting your war rooms. So they're more expensive for you to run as a company. So if you've got lots of stuff in P2s, then you might have incident managers coming in and various other things. that is costing you a lot more money. Whereas if those were in P3s, it will cost you less money to fix each incident, and more money you could either save or spend on consulting with two lovely people like us or something like that.
No, you know what? It's a shame. I know we're going to move to our lives. This would be like a great one for lives, because I can imagine like we'd be getting questions and just like, what about that? What about that? Especially when we get into more detail now.
So maybe we'll do that.
And maybe a replay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so many things you can do to this. I'm not going to do everything under the sun, but here we're going to select the same data again, but we're going to put it in our existing worksheet, the one that we just created. And now we're going to have a look at something different. So we'll start with our number, and we'll have a look at the we will have a look at reassignment count, because this is one of my all-time favorites here.
Oh, that's interesting, nice, because I feel not all. Oh, that's a broader question rather than this particular attribute. So actual good data from these different products, a lot of them either, not a lot of them, some of them either won't have it, never exist as an attribute, or it won't be populated, or in some cases it'll be populated with junk. So what do we do in those scenarios? Are we best endeavor territory, or have we got workarounds? If we want to look at this reassignment, we can't do it, we're like, what do we do? Do you dismiss it? What's the general approach?
So if the data doesn't exist, clearly there's nothing you can do to analyze that data, but an action you could take is to start to say, okay, we don't have reassignment count. Where is that? It's probably in your product somewhere. It's just not something that you've ever turned on because it wasn't a default option. So go and see if it is. And if it isn't, then go and ask your vendor whether they've got it in the roadmap, whether there's another edition where they've got that. Pretty much everything I'm going to talk about is standard in products these days, and yeah, it will just be that you don't have it in default. However, one other thing to mention is that if you find that you don't have the data in your tool, but it is, that stuff is switched on, or the data that comes back looks clearly wrong, then you've got a data problem that you need to go work on and start to prioritize. Okay, everybody, for example, whenever you turn on whenever you create an incident, now we're going to say that the affected business service is a mandatory field, and you can't get away with not filling that in. So you can start to build up a much better picture of data. So what I should have done here is labeled each category, each little field that I do, so I remember what I was talking about, and put in some colors as well. So there we found that P2s were too high, so I've labeled that one orange. So this one here, this reassignment count, which is definitely one of my favorites, says that in the last 6 months, we had 1,334 incidents. Of those 1,334 incidents, only 204 of them went to the right resolver group first time, i.e., let's say email system went wrong, it got routed straight to the email team, but actually only, what's that, less than 10%, about 15% of the time, that was the right thing. The rest of the time, it should have gone to a server team or a network team or a cloud team or whatever it was that was causing the problem, right? So you've got so much wasted time and effort here, because what happens is each team of yours has an SLA, of course, to look at it and say, yes, we should be owning this and we should start resolving it, or no, it's not us and we're going to pass it on. And so a customer I was working with recently, their teams had a half an hour SLA to look at things and decide if it was them or pass it on. So by the time you got to your eighth resolver group for these two incidents, that meant 4 hours time had passed. in those before it got to the right person. So there you've definitely got some stuff that you want to highlight and say, we need to get far better at getting the right incident to the right home first time. And of course, an easy way to do that is to look at the CIs. What was the affected CI? So if we go,
News heading down this route though. So we've got, I imagine, a good proportion of customers who will be, just the way it is, quite immature in the CI and C&DB space. So we'll be able to achieve this fairly easy, so to speak, when we've got customers who are mature enough in the C&DB space that they've got good categorization and a decent stack of CIs. What about when they've not? Like what could we offer up as an opportunity to help deal with some auto assignments if they're not decently mature in the C&DB space?
Well, you're going to be able to get to something by at least filling in the affected service a mandatory field. So making sure that somebody asks, okay, right, what's the service that's affected? And if they know it, what the CI is that's affected. Really easy if it's your laptop or whatever. Maybe not so easy if you can't get on the CRM system or whatever. But you've got to start with something. So making sure that the service, and we'll have a look at service as the next one, is filled in is a starting point, because that allows you to start putting the right priority on it and trying to get it to the right home, I would suggest. Have you got any other?
Yeah, let me just come to why I think sometimes this CI bit doesn't work and we'll still catch reassignments. It's because the CI will only be categorized at a certain level. So if someone's tagging in a CI for the issue, it could be tagged as the physical thing versus the software that was running on it versus the connection or the connectivity device that was connected to it. So the CI isn't just a case for people to do CI, it's at the right level of that issue. So they really need to understand where the issue is to understand what level of CI is being impacted. But no, if people are not that mature in the C&DB space, the old-fashioned CTI, the category type item, is a strong space to start. But all that will come down to is strength in your monitoring and event management. That's got to be on point. Otherwise, if you're not got that categorized well, if you're not got that categorized well, you probably haven't got your CI structure categorized well. So you need to do something down there to make sure you're getting the right noise that ends up in the right spaces. Otherwise, you just end up with massive amount of noise in the bucket and all these problems.
And this is exactly why you do exercises like this, because then you start realizing, actually, we've got a problem here. And therefore, if we're not giving our help desk staff the right information that they need to be able to solve the problem, it's always going to take them a long time. So we should start prioritizing getting them better data, and we could start with maybe a CI project or like this, a category project. And here all we're going to do is we're going to then start, we're going to go by count of number, we're going to go descending, and that will give us and tell us that application is our biggest category of problems, followed by network, and then everything else actually looks pretty reasonable, to be fair. It's these two are definitely the biggest challenges that we've got as an organization. So be interesting to then see whether that links back to problem. If we do any problem management there, are we working on problems and networks more than anything else? And quite often, as I said earlier, you might get a problem with something like here, for example, SAP, and everything goes haywire and everybody runs around going crazy. And then you get a whole new project of, right, how are we going to do better with our SAP monitoring and whatever, whereas actually we've only had 9 incidents with SAP in 6 months. Well, we've got 801 application incidents or 368 network incidents, and if we could improve what we do around those, it's going to make a much bigger impact to the organization.
Is there an analogy to use like death by 1,000 paper cuts or something along those lines?
Yeah,
you deal with those paper cuts application network in this scenario, and you'll probably be a lot better off versus a punch in the face through SAP in that scenario.
You are absolutely spot on. Of course, you need to really understand the impact of that to be able to do that, because an SAP thing might actually cause your whole business to be down and you do really have a problem. But
that particular topic is probably a good one for another session, but ultimately I think we're going down the route of service impact modeling type territory, I guess.
Yes, potentially. So if we go and do the same thing by our CIs, and interestingly, even though application was the highest category, the CIs that are causing the most problems are networks, or networks/IT security in this particular case, which I would suggest should be two different categories.
Someone wasn't sure.
And so straight away, you've got a problem that either you've got networks and IT security in separate categories somewhere, but it doesn't really look like it, or somebody's bundled them together and you need to split it out. And so straight away, you can make an impact there by having two separate categories and working out whether you've got more network problems or IT security problems. And that would help you get to the right home for straight away. And you can see clearly here that the CIs that are causing the most problem are in this space. So you definitely want to do something about that. And then you're into some software, quite a lot of software issues, of course, but straight away you're going, okay, right, we need to do something about networks or IT security, whatever the issue is. So I'm just going to pick one more today because I'm conscious that I'm throwing a lot at everyone today.
I think definitely, I know this one won't probably get released for a few weeks realistically with our backlog, but I think it would be good to tag on the back of this a live type walkthrough, because I've got some other scenarios I think will work like this as well, where we can show some of the workings that we do, bread and butter stuff. That'll be really beneficial for people. But this one here, I think will be good as a live walkthrough, because I'm sure it will generate some questions. We don't. It's not foreign stuff, right? But people won't do it. In actual fact, in a lot of cases, it'll probably take the vendor to come in to do this and to look at their own data versus them themselves.
Yeah, I agree. So let's have a look at. Let's try and have a look at resolution code if this customer has done something with it, which they have, which is good news, because this is often not very well tended. And this always gives you some interesting stuff. So configuration settings updated is the most common thing to resolve incidents in this particular scenario. So straight away, that says to me that they're not very good at configuration management in the first place. I.e., somebody is changing things that they shouldn't be changing, or that take them out of policy. They don't have a clear policy that's been applied across the organization that is kept in uniform. And something like that is probably pretty cheap and easy to sort out. That would, especially given what we know that a lot of their incidents are in the network space, we can probably say that actually it's network configuration is their issue. I bet they've already got some kind of tool, or if not, those tools are pretty cheap to put in and implement, and you could probably therefore sort out a lot of those issues really, really easily. You've got rebooted component and device here as well. And this is a prime example for automation here. Did we really need a person to come in and have a look?
And the one below.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of my favorite ones, no action taken.
Ta-da!
In 10% of their cases, 10% of all incident, nobody did anything about it whatsoever. But actually, when I look down the list, you've also got troubleshooting complete, no issue found, which sounds to me very, very similar to that. So anyway, you get the picture. You can come in here, you can just start dragging and dropping some of these things in simple pivot tables in Excel and get some really, really easy insights in a very, very quick way. And I'm just going to share out a couple of other examples because I wanted to show you that this is not just me picking on one particular example that was really happened to be easy to dissect. But this one here is from an incredibly large company, and hopefully I'm sharing out.
Yeah, I see it.
The right thing. Yep. And so this is their P1s, only their P1s for 6 months. And yes, you're right, they had 1,011 P1s in 6 months, this particular company. And when we started looking at it, the first thing that we saw in our CI categories was the second biggest CI category was blank. So therefore, they had a really hard time getting it to the right home, especially as the biggest affected business service was blank. So you don't know the business service and you know the CI, where is it going to go? And guess what that caused? That caused out of their 1,011 CIs, actually, oh, I'm in the wrong one. This one here, this is what I wanted, was that only 427, so 42% roughly of their incidents went to the right home first time. And all the rest of these incidents here, that's what, 600, over 600 incidents went to the wrong home first time, every time. And these are P1 incidents, right? So we're talking, they've got directors on the calls, they've got, every Tom, Dick and Harry diving into these and finding out that that they're sending incidents to the wrong home and the wrong people are working on it, right? So this is, I've got loads and loads of examples of this. Every single customer that I have ever done this with, which is a lot in my lifetime, I've always found stuff in the first 5 minutes that you could take and look at and do something with. So I'm going to give my voice a rest now, and you can summarize today, Matt.
Oh man, I can't touch anything. I can't take notes. No, but I will do my best to summarize. Let's do it. Let's do a pivot. So I think the summary of it is, I think we've used the phrase before, data is the key. Doing this exercise on a periodic basis versus just responding to something is always going to be worthwhile. The simplicity of the exercise to get the data in front of you and to understand the data isn't a massive burden. But once you do, you're able to do something with it. So the simple spreadsheet approach will actually get you massive benefits to the business because you're able to see what's happening, when, how, where, what, why, even if, which is often the case, I feel, the quality of data is a problem. Great, we've now just identified the quality of data is a problem. Let's go deal with that. The reason why we want to do all of this is because you can't make any other decisions without seeing the data. So data is the key. Do the exercise, not just one time, on a regular basis, but then act on the data.
Boom. Magic. Great summary. And if anybody would like to volunteer to have their data analyzed in real time on one of our calls, then bring it on. It'd be great fun. We'll happily keep your organization's name a secret. Yeah, that'll be good. Wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone. We will see you on the next edition of Not Another Tooling podcast.
See you later, guys.